welcome in our superstar, our 1320 Kings insider, and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, here on D'Lo and Casey on KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, and driven by our friends at Lasher's Elk Grove Dodge. Always live on the free Odyssey app. What's happening, Hammer?
Not a whole lot, man. Doesn't Kyrie have like the cheese touch though? Like he might want to be back there, but does anyone want to be around him?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, he just got lumped into this KD thing in such a weird. It was like, what's the Kyrie's going to go play in LA for $6 million, and then he's like, no, that would be normal. I'm going to go back to Brooklyn. I'm going to do what creative people do.
I say you got to be brave.
Be brave, and I'm going to go to Brooklyn. And then KD asked out, and then all of a sudden it's back to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving want out of Brooklyn, and Kyrie's like, wait a minute, what? I didn't say anything.
Yeah, when I think of Kyrie, the first thing I think of is brave. That's usually the first thing that pops into my head. And how brave. Did you see the report that he tried to negotiate into his next contract that he didn't have to play more than 60 games?
I didn't believe it.
What's that?
They said that was false too.
I did not believe it.
Did they say it was false?
Anything at Kyrie, man. They be throwing anything at him, man.
Kyrie demanded he played. Okay, see that's your problem, James. You're quoting stuff from Rick Bucher. That's where that came from.
Oh,
trash.
I just said the report. Like you
got to be better than reading stuff. As soon as you see, hey, Rick Bucher said, just keep scrolling.
Friends don't let friends quote Rick Bucher.
Kyrie Irving tried to work in his contract that he could play one game with his hand tied behind his back.
So that brings up a good point, though. And Ham and Damien, I want to just want to talk about this sometimes. So last week, Kevin Durant, there was a report that execs said that they had heard Kevin Durant said he'll retire before he plays for Brooklyn again. And KD came out like the next morning on his Twitter. It's like, bro, I'm not retiring. I have no plans on retiring. I don't know why you guys believe this S. You get into what was just reported by Rick Bucher about the Kyrie thing. Why do people do this? Why do they just say things that are clearly false? Like, I believe KD and Kyrie in these specific instances and examples. Like, that didn't happen. Why would you say that? Why would you go out there and just say whatever?
Okay, so the Kevin Durant situation is different. So, like, I've known Mark Stein for a while. He and I aren't close or anything, but I do get his newsletter, and he's a very, very well-sourced reporter. And when he wrote that, it was very specific. He said that during Summer League, a Eastern Conference executive told him that. And then in the next paragraph, Mark Stein was very clear. By no way, shape, or form do I believe that. Like, Kevin Durant loves the game way too much. There's no way he's going to step away from the game. So Stein introduced it as something that somebody said and then blew it away. But the way that NBA Twitter works is they aggregate everything. And it doesn't matter what you say. Like, they're going to aggregate it. And they're, like, I had a situation, and it wasn't, I don't even know who it was, but they made like a screenshot and then put words that they thought I said on a quote board and posted it on Facebook off of the show that we're doing right now. But it was like a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, whoa. I didn't say that expect the Kings to make 2 to 3 more major moves before the start of the season. I didn't say that. Like, will they try to make moves? Heck yeah, they'll try to make moves, but there ain't 2 to 3 moves to make here. Like, that's not what I said. So sometimes you got to like back it up a little bit. And I know Durant jumped in, but if Durant had read what Mark Stein says, the problem that Mark Stein has is that it's gated. So his content is gated. So if you don't pay the $5 a month or $7 a month or $9 a month, then you don't really know what he said. You just got what somebody quoted him saying. And that's a dangerous game. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of where we're at, in the way that media goes.
Well, Bucher really said it.
You heard it here first. James Ham said the Kings were going to trade for Kevin Durant, but wouldn't include Rashawn Holmes in the deal. So.
Twice. They're going to trade for him twice. They'll trade him, and then they'll trade him to another team, and then they'll trade for him again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So put that on your Facebook news board. Yeah. So let's without any explanation as to why I'm asking this, let's just get into this conversation because I'm sure almost everybody has seen it by now. We were talking about Kyrie, and he was one of the focal points of Taylor Rooks and Jason Tatum's conversation. Is Kyrie Irving a superstar?
No.
The conversation is the conversation between the two, and it was very interesting, and it's obviously panned out here to podcasts and to social media and to radio, is what defines an NBA superstar, and it's starting to feel like everyone has their own definition as to what that is. And you say Kyrie Irving, because there were two names that came up in at least the clip that aired. There was a lot more on the actual podcast, but on the clip, Kyrie and Dame Lillard came up. Mm-hmm. And you say Kyrie Irving is not a superstar. Is Dame?
Man, I don't think so. So this is it is a complicated thing because like the real debate of this, it started back in the early 2000s with, is Chris Webber a superstar or not? And I think a lot of people said no. But then you're like, okay, well, is Kevin Garnett? And people are, oh, yeah, Kevin Garnett is. Like, okay, well, let's compare the two and let's see who's won more. And let's put them on the same, like on a playing field, like who's better. And then people are like, okay, well, maybe I need to reevaluate. And it's interesting. I only think that there's a small grouping of superstars, quote unquote superstars in the league. But, you know, I guess it's up for everyone's interpretation. They're star players. They're like all-star level players. So I think there are all of these terms that we use to divide guys up into like almost tiers. And I don't know where I put Dame, but like if I'm looking at the true superstars of the league, you know, guys come and go out of that group. I don't think Harden and Westbrook are superstars any longer, but they were at one point. But do you lose that moniker when you're no longer that player, the player that you were? So I think it's a really interesting discussion. And, you know, for my money, you know, like Antetokounmpo and Doncic and LeBron James and Steph Curry and Jokic, Embiid, like there's going to be a couple more superstars. You know, there are a time where Kawhi could have been a superstar, but I don't think he will have stayed at that level long enough, and the injuries have just wiped him out. So I think it's tough, but there's a lot of stars in the league.
Man, I don't know how much more you could have said that I disagreed with.
That's okay.
I think there are a lot of superstars in this league. And I think when you talk about, for me, this is my definition, right? When you talk about a superstar, it's different than talking about who's accomplished, right?
Yeah. And who's a star or who's an all-star? Yeah.
Kyrie Irving is a superstar. In my opinion, a superstar can't have the number one signature shoe line in all of basketball. That's a superstar. Is he more accomplished than somebody? He's actually more accomplished than people give him credit for. He's an NBA champion and a multi-time all-star. But he's a superstar.
That's like a fashion icon. I mean, I get it. You know, like Iverson was a superstar who also was a fashion icon and like changed the game with his shoes and all that stuff. I get what you're saying, but I just think we're all going to think different ways.
But he's a superstar. Like you pay this. This is very. I understand how it's going to sound, and I'm not saying I'm putting him as a superstar. All right, don't Mark Stein me. All right, I'm putting him as a superstar. But let's just be real. Ain't nobody breaking their neck when Nikola Jokic is on the schedule to come see the Nuggets.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Now,
I'm with you.
Is in the penthouse. Like we've established that. When you talk about the best players in the world, and you talked about separating guys, James. You got tier 1, tier 2. That's fine. There's a penthouse, and there's only a couple of guys in that penthouse, and Nikola Jokic is one of them. Mm-hmm. but I would not define him as an NBA superstar.
Yeah.
For reasons that Kenny just laid out. Who is clamoring to go to the... There are more people clamoring to go see whoever Kyrie Irving's team is than there are to see... And that's a perception of Nikola Jokic. That's not a reflection of his game. That's not a reflection of anything. He's just...
Okay, so...
Was Tim Duncan a superstar?
Well, of course, yeah, Tim Duncan was. But but I'll say this about Kyrie. Has anyone ever clamored to go to a game that he was at just because of him? Because last time I checked, when he was on the Cavs, no one would show up if LeBron James wasn't on that team. And when he's on the Nets, yeah, there are some people who show up, but are they showing up for him or are they showing up for KD? Like, can you separate?
No, Kyrie's a superstar.
I don't know.
The summer, and Damien, you were in the middle of all this. The summer when he requested a trade, that solidified it. Like, if you had any questions about his star power before, I remember I'm listening at the time. I don't have a show, but that was everything. That stopped everything when he said he wanted to be traded. And until he was traded, that's all, like we talk about KD right now and Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons last year. That was Kyrie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get what you're saying, but I just have a tough time with it, specifically with Kyrie. I mean, and I think guys can, like, they have superstar status, and, who is a better player, him or Dame Lillard? I don't think it's even close. And
how much of a superstar is the player, though? Like, is it like your skill set? Because to me, when you're using a term like superstar, you're talking about someone who has mass appeal. You're talking about someone who could go on the shop and pull numbers or has a big social media following or has interest. There's to me, superstars there's stuff outside the game. You could be a star basketball player, but when you talk about a superstar, I feel you're talking about something totally different.
Yeah, but I don't know, because if you're going to lump guys in from the NBA and say how many superstars are there in the league, I don't think you're going to get to the who sold the most shoes. Like, for the most part, people are going to be who is a huge draw? Who do fans line up to go see? And again, I'll make the argument that...
Not Nikola Jokic.
Well, you're right. Not Nikola Jokic, but I'll also say that Kyrie Irving on the Cleveland Cavaliers without LeBron James, no one went to those games. No one cared at all that the Cavs were rolling through Sacramento or Indiana or Houston or Dallas. Nobody cared. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but you put him in the biggest market ever in New York, sure, he gets elevated, but I would still make the argument that he doesn't play enough to be a superstar, but also that Durant is really the draw there. If you're going to go pay for Nets tickets, it's to watch one of the greatest basketball players in the history of the game in Kevin Durant. I don't think it's because of Kyrie. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think, again, it comes down to, like, personal preference. And, like, I don't put Jimmy Butler in superstar status, even though, he's big and he's in a big market and they win. He's just not there, So there has to be an element of, like, how far can you take your team? And I think even like Damian Lillard, like, he hides in obscurity a little bit because he's in Portland. And it's just not this major crazy market. You put Dame Lillard in Los Angeles, and you're probably right about how the perception of him changes. He becomes a superstar there. But yeah, I don't know. I've always thought of superstars as their level of play.
Well, even to that point, though, Nikola Jokic took his team nowhere.
They made it to the Western Conference Finals.
Jamal Murray was averaging like 30 during that whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about the two-time MVP.
He wasn't the MVP that year?
No, he went on to win it 2 years MVP, after.
They got bounced.
Yeah.
So, like, he's gone.
They got bounced, but then you just brought up Murray, and then Murray wasn't there the 2 years that they got bounced.
But Kyrie has gone just as far as Jokic has, and further in his career.
Yeah, with LeBron.
Dame has gone just as far, if not further, in his career is Jokic.
Dame has 3 rings if he's playing with LeBron on the Cavs.
Okay, but if we like, this is what I talk about. If we talking about winning, Jokic ain't won nothing, but individual awards. And I'm not trying to diminish him at all, but they always bring about like the team success and all. The Nuggets ain't won nothing. They got to the Western Conference Finals in the bubble where they were down 3-1 2 times. And that ball, they for all intents and purposes, they should have been gone in the first round.
But they weren't, and they beat good teams in the first and the second round.
And they get credit for that. But they did that one time. Dame Lillard got to the Western Conference Finals too.
Yeah, once. He did. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, Dame is right there. And if you take Damian Lillard off the court and his draw as a rapper and all the other things that he does, I mean, I think that, like, if you're going to put superstar status, it can't be because Kyrie has the number 1 shoe and that makes him a superstar.
Well, Jimmy Butler done more than Jokic in his career.
He's what?
He's won more than Jokic in his career.
Well, yeah, but Jimmy Butler's also like 4 years older than Jokic, and I mean, Jokic.
But we say that's why he's not a superstar. But if we're talking about winning, because when we talk about like the individual and selling stuff, like that can't really matter. So let's talk about winning. Well, when we talk about winning, Jimmy Butler didn't win a whole lot more than Jokic in his career. But Jokic is a superstar, but not Jimmy Butler.
I think that like your points per game and the way that another team game plans against you, the way that you impact the game on the court, that's part of what makes you a superstar. Like, I mean, I think for a long time people were ready to anoint Anthony Davis a superstar, but the fact that he plays 60% of the games for his career, if that, like, it really limits who he can be as a superstar. Does he have a ring? Sure, he won with LeBron, but it's still that it doesn't make him a superstar. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. It's a complex question. Like, and I think it's about opinion more than anything else. What makes you a superstar? What doesn't? I would just say, like, for me, like, basketball players who don't play, who take large chunks of time off and just can't stay healthy or choose not to play, I can't put them in superstar status.
Going through this, my bad, Dame, real quick. Going through this, I feel what I've learned is the terminology is wrong. Like, superstar is different than a franchise player. Jokic is a franchise player. I don't know if he's a super. I always, people do this test all the time. Damian, my mom, she watches basketball all the time. Big basketball fan. Kind of knows who Jokic is. Like, she knows who he is because he's in the playoffs and all this other stuff. But hey, Jokic coming to town, you want to check him out? All right. Do we have the same seats as last time? You know what I'm saying? Like, but if I say, yo, Kyrie, okay, let me see what Kyrie. Yeah. You know what I mean? Kyrie's a superstar, but Kyrie's not a franchise player. Jokic is a franchise player and a superstar to us because we know him. But superstars are the general public. Trae Young was another guy they talked about. Trae Young, in my opinion, is a superstar in the NBA.
Yeah, see, again, I would disagree. Trae Young is a star. He's got his team to the Eastern Conference Finals. But again, he's also like missed the playoffs with his team. Like, Jokic is not just the reigning 2-time MVP. He's the leader in the last 2 seasons in PER and win shares. Like, you can't even
stuff no one cares about.
But you can't even argue, like, on the court, he's the best player in the league the last 2 seasons.
That's not the conversation. That's where I think this whole thing is getting lost, is for some reason we've substituted great players for superstars. And to me, that's not the same thing. Kyrie Irving is absolutely a superstar because I believe he has universal appeal. He appeals to people outside of those who know what the hell a PER is. Like, there's no questioning Jokic and Giannis and LeBron and Steph. There's absolutely no questioning and Luka Doncic, who the great players, the greatest players in the league are. But I think there's a difference between that and what a superstar is. And I felt like this day in the Twitter discussions and the podcast discussions have been encompassed with deciding, like, is superstar the same thing as a great player, or are they completely different? Superstar to me feels like it's a completely different term.
Mm-hmm.
Kyrie Irving is absolutely a superstar. I don't give a damn what any of you think. Russell Westbrook is a needle-moving superstar.
100%.
Yeah.
The player he was 3-4 years ago? Absolutely not. But he has universal appeal to people like me, to people like who just barely know basketball. You talk about the test with your mom. We do that test all the. We have this discussion about wrestling all of the time. Who's the greatest wrestler of all the time? Well, your mom. Ask your grandma, does she know who Hulk Hogan is or The Rock? Because she sure as hell ain't gonna say Stone Cold Steve Austin or Ric Flair. Like that's
hard.
Like, can you ask someone outside of our world? Hey, do you know who Kyrie Irving is? They're not gonna bring up his PER. Hey, do you know that Nikola Jokic won the last 2 MVPs? No. Hey, did you know LeBron hosts a show called The Shop? Oh my God, I love The Shop. I watch it every week. To me, that's the defining difference. That's the difference between talking about great players and what a superstar is.
No, I get you. I'll just circle the key term was to me. That's what you said.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where, like, you can define superstar that way. I don't think I define superstar that way. Because, again, like, when it comes to Kyrie, like, dude, you have to actually play. And you can't – we want to talk about superstar. What is Kyrie known more for? His shoes with certain people, sure, or the fact that he's a flat earth guy. Like, and one of those things could make you a superstar, and one of those things
Probably
could –
more known for his behavior.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so are you a superstar because you act a fool? No.
No, he's a superstar because he's won a championship. He's one of the more talented players that we've seen in the last 10 to 15 years of the game. That's another reason why the shoes sell. That's another reason why he had I'm not going to say a #1 movie. He had a movie. The man had a movie.
Well, he can be a top 20 player.
But I'm looking at this message from Sass on youtube.com/ESPN1320. Superstar isn't a popularity contest. No, yes, it is.
Absolutely is.
It absolutely is. That's 1,000% what it is.
Franchise player,
universal.
Franchise player is not a proper popularity contest. That's something totally different. Superstar absolutely is a popularity contest.
I think to a certain degree it is, but I also, like, it just depends on your, like, how you're defining it. And I think we clearly define it different ways. You know, and I think you can have a superstar in a small market. Like, if a guy is gonna, you know,
I got one for you guys. Is Zion a superstar?
Indiana, based on everything I've read over the last few months.
Wait, what's that?
Is Zion a superstar?
Our superstar to Indiana. Go ahead, ask that again.
Zion is not a superstar. He's not. I mean, like, you have to be a good player in order to be a superstar, and he hasn't proven that he can be anything on the court yet. Like, he's had some moments, but
I mean, the former president of the United States did go watch him play.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know. I don't know what we're doing anymore.
I get it.
Peak August right here. This is what's happening.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I think a lot of this, like, I refuse to define who a superstar is by who SportsCenter puts on every night. That's not, to me, what makes a superstar. I think, you know, there are guys that become superstars that do it in obscurity because they just aren't in a hot spot. Okay. But that doesn't mean that they're not superstars, that they're not like a really, really, like, amazing player or amazing personality in a smaller market.
So, Joel Embiid, superstar?
Okay. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's the last 2-3 years perennial MVP candidate. He's, you know, he's got the personality to be a superstar. You know, who was it that he used to try to ask for dates on Twitter? Shoot a shot with Rihanna. He's the guy that's known for Shirley Temples, right? So, like, yeah, I think he does, like, to a certain degree, like, he's become a superstar. Just like I think Luka is too. Like, Luka went to the Western Conference Finals this last year, But Luka walked into the league, and you're just like, oh man, he just oozes like something different. Like there's something about him, and again, like compare what Kyrie was in his first couple of years in the league without LeBron to what he's considered now. He was considered a really fun, exciting player.
He was an all-star. Like, he wasn't a scrub. Like,
rookie of the year.
All-star team.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's been, Michael Carter-Williams was rookie of the year.
Yeah, he wasn't Michael Carter-Williams.
Yeah. I mean, he was an all-star in his second season. No, I mean, you're right. Yeah, he's always been a good player, but
wasn't the All-Star game MVP?
Again, well, that doesn't matter.
You said a name earlier that I'm just stuck on, and I feel like we do this all of the time, and I just need to look to make sure I'm not talking out of my ass here.
Who's
so,
that?
Kawhi's not a superstar. Like, Kawhi's not that level of player anymore.
Well, I don't
Kawhi
know.
Leonard, do you remember when Kawhi Leonard, when the Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship? Do you remember the conversation about has Kawhi Leonard supplemented LeBron James as the best player in basketball?
Just because some loudmouth on TV says something, I'll ask you this: like, do you have the Kawhis? Like, where's your collection of Kawhis?
I ain't got no
Kawhis around here.
Wait, you do have them?
We ain't getting no Kawhis around here.
Oh, wait, no, you don't have any Kawhis around here, do you? You don't have any Kawhis at all. And is he in the biggest market in America? Yeah, he is. So, look, was he in a movie? He might have been in a movie too. I don't know.
With him and Jack Harlow. He was in Kendrick Lamar's video, and everybody knew about it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, how do we define a superstar? And like, you have to actually play the game. You do. You have to play the game, and he's great when he does play, but he's unfortunately missed so much time in his career that, you just kind of lose sight of where he is and like the greatest players in the game.
I don't think he's missed as much time as we think that he has. He
Two
missed
full seasons. 2 full seasons.
Yeah, but not one after the other.
No, but even when he came back, he played like limited numbers of games.
He played 60 games, averaged 26.6 points per game, and won the NBA championship.
Yeah.
And then went to LA.
But he also played 9 games the year before that.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the 1 year.
Yeah. Well, no. Last year he missed all of the season. He missed 20 games the year before that. He missed 15 games a year before that, 20 the year before that.
Load management.
Hey, like I continue to tell you guys, I think, and I've figured this out as we've had. You guys are mistaking franchise player for superstar, or vice versa. Like, there's a difference between the two. Superstar, yeah, I know what a superstar is. I know what a franchise player is too, and they're not always related. Sometimes they cross paths. More times than not, they cross paths. But there's a reason ESPN said, you know what? We don't usually have games on Sunday, but this is Zion's first game. We're putting them on there. They wouldn't put Jokic's first game of the season on a Sunday. I know that much.
They choose who is a superstar and who is not.
No, the public demands that. Like, we can not like Yankees Red Sox as much as we want. That gets better ratings than Giants Cardinals. Like, I don't like Yankees Red Sox every Sunday, but it's a fact. Like, they wouldn't put it on there if they weren't getting the return. So they wouldn't put Zion on there if they wouldn't get the return, which is what they got. We get mad about the Lakers. They get the return. That's why they keep putting them on there.
No, I get you, but they've created the monster themselves. Like, they are the biggest pitch machine in the history. They are Don King of television.
I didn't need ESPN to tell me Zion was special when he was a sophomore. Like, I knew about him. If you want to say ball is life and overtime, I do that. Sure. They had it before ESPN.
Yeah. No, right. I mean, I think it's a really interesting discussion. And, Will S. can believe that Tim Duncan is not a superstar. He's literally the greatest power forward in the history of the NBA.
Doesn't mean he's a superstar.
He has 5 rings, right?
He's a superstar.
It doesn't mean he's a superstar.
It means he's a great basketball player, one of the greatest of all time.
Well, but then you can't mention Kawhi in that conversation because he's he talks less than Tim Duncan.
That may very well be true. Well, I don't know what we're gonna do when we come back. So I don't even know Ham's gonna be here when we come back. Steelo and KC on ESPN 1320.
We'll discuss the weirdness that is Tyrese Haliburton and have another lively discussion on the weirdness it is. I mean, like seriously.
Bizarre.
And that you're not the sharpest knife in this chatty house drawer. We literally just explained the seasons that he missed. At least keep up a little bit here, Brad. We got you.
Brad been missing for the last hour.
Brad's struggling, man. Like Brad.
Come on, Brad. Hang on, I've got to reset my audio. It's doing funny things.
That's a cool discussion. I like that stuff.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's just not a superstar player anymore. He's absolutely a superstar. 100%. Russ.
Oh, yeah.
He's just not that level of player anymore. But that was the whole discussion. Yeah, you could make that argument that they've fallen kind of out of that category. Like Russ doesn't have commercials running on anymore. Like you could absolutely make that argument. 100%. Yeah, you get taken out of superstar status and replaced by someone else. The way I was looking at it, it's no different than a pop star. It's the exact same thing as a pop star. Michael Jackson is Ham. I think Ham, you're muted. When you unplug your mic, it mutes itself.
Oh, my bad. There we go.
That's how I look at the same thing. I look at a pop star. Like the next pop star is replaced by, the current pop star is replaced by the next pop star. It's the same thing to me. So
somebody trying to start a fight in here. I just saw someone just asked me if someone was a superstar. That was like them are fighting words. Oh, yeah, the Carmelo. Is Carmelo a superstar? No.
Carmelo's in the category of he absolutely was. I don't think he is today.
He's not that type of player.
Yeah, he absolutely was a superstar.
I guess.
I'll put it you like this. If Kyrie says, yo, I'm playing in the Seattle Pro-Am today, and Jokic says, yo, I'm playing in the Seattle Pro-Am today, who's getting a bigger crowd?
Yeah, but I don't know if that matters. Like if you put Carmelo Anthony on, let's say, the Houston Rockets this season, Oklahoma City Thunder, Detroit Pistons, and you say, hey, Carmelo's coming through on a Wednesday night, no one gives a rat's. Like, they don't care.
Oh, I disagree. Like, are we talking now? Like when, like I wanted to see Carmelo when he was with the Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted to see him, but was it like the hottest ticket ever? And that was a really good team.
It was.
I don't know. It's
but then who on a bad team is the hottest? Zion. Zion is the hottest ticket on a bad team. Like Zion, if the Pelicans were 1-13 and Zion was weighing out there, he's still selling out.
They're in year 1 and year 2, maybe, but at this point, is anyone going to see the Pelicans just to watch Zion? Absolutely. Well, I mean, maybe in New Orleans, but like
Lindsay brings up another good one. LaMelo is a superstar.
I am astonished by the dumb shit Brad Clayton puts into that.
Brad,
like, you know that's out there forever. Like people will see what you just wrote. Like, that stupidity lives with you forever. Like, wow, every time
it doesn't wash off.
Dumber, he types something else, and it's like, oh man, that was actually dumber than the last thing he wrote.
Don't say that, Vincini. Yeah, that's funny.
Scott says no, nobody would be
live on the Odyssey app, live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Nothing better than a completely subjective conversation. Everybody all riled up.
And look, I'll let me add this. because I don't think he's necessarily a good enough player. But you guys know how I feel about this guy. But I ain't no hater. Ryan Jennings says Draymond Green is absolutely a superstar. I don't think nobody's tuning in to watch Draymond Green, but Draymond Green gets people's attention. I do say that whether Boston wants to call him out his name for 48 minutes or whatever, they're not doing that for Gary Payton II. It's Draymond, because Draymond is like, I got to get at Draymond. Warriors fans, I love Draymond. He has superstar qualities. I can admit that for sure.
He might be one of those guys like that. That's a good, like, he has superstar qualities, but his game doesn't match. Like your game has to match to a certain point. It's like we were just talking about with guys like Russ and Kyrie. You can lose the label. Like 2016, maybe Draymond was a superstar, but his game doesn't match everything else. That's a tough one. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, you could even say the same about Clay, because, you know, we've been spammed with every version of Clay over the last like 5 years because there's like a couple of media outlets in the Bay Area who literally just make all of their money off of Clay and his dog. And they're like a media Uzi, just shooting like junk all over the space. Anything that Clay does. Oh, look, Clay looks like he looks like he has a blank face. Well, that's what Clay always looks like. Like, oh, Clay didn't say anything. Huh. That's because Clay doesn't say anything. Like, oh, it's news. Let's run with it. Let's write 6 stories on it. That makes sense.
I don't care about his dog or him on a boat. I do not care.
Let's pitch it. Let's go. Like, this is like the Clay story. It's like watching Charlie Chaplin. It's a silent movie. You're just like, what is happening? Why are we watching this? We're watching it because somebody has fed us over the last 5 years. We have to watch everything that Klay Thompson does. Even though for 3 of those years, he didn't even play basketball. Yeah.
What does all of this mean for what we've been fed since February regarding Tyrese Haliburton? Because if there was a conversation to be had for superstars in the making, it's clear Tyrese Haliburton is trekking to the first ever winner of the Most Improved Player, the MVP, the Defensive Player of the Year award. He might even get the Biletnikoff Trophy in here. He might get the Wade Trophy. He's going to get them all if you read enough about Tyrese. Obviously, we're tongue in cheek here, but he did an interview with Alex Kennedy of Basketball News where Sacramento came up again in his discussions, and he talked about resentment and letting it go and using it to motivate him. I know you like Tyrese Haliburton, and I feel like everybody has to preface things what they say about Tyrese with, I really like Tyrese. But what comes after you say, I really like Tyrese, but?
I really like Tyrese. But I don't get it. I don't like. This is a business, and they all know that. And they didn't even. I mean, you could say they did him dirty, but I mean, they called him a half hour before, and they told him before it hit social media that he was being traded. And I know that doesn't feel good, and I totally get it, but I don't know. I mean, the franchise was not super straight up about it. I'll tell you that, because I heard the same thing he did, that they were going to build around Fox and Haliburton, and they believed that like the sample size was too small and they're gonna build around him. And that is what I was told like 3 days before he was traded. But that things change. I mean, you got a really, 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 really good player. Is he a superstar, Sabonis? No, he's not. But you got a really, really excellent NBA player that's a 2-time All-Star and fits a position of need and all that, like a guy you can build your whole team around. I get it, like he thought he would be here forever, but I don't buy that. Like, where do we get 5 years in and whether he wants to be here anymore? Like, if they're not winning, like, he would be just like everyone else. It doesn't matter, and that's what he sees right now. It's a young man reaction, and I totally get it. He's one of the brightest kids that you're going to meet. He's so articulate. I love I love, like, his dad and I had a conversation right before the whole thing went down, and I felt bad for him too because he didn't expect it and he didn't see any of it coming. At the same time, like, this is the NBA, man. This is show business. Like, you have to understand that this is part of it, and I'm just kind of surprised that it keeps coming up. And part of it is that people ask the question. Like, if people stop asking the question about it, then he'll stop talking about it, I think. But at this point, it's just like how Michael Malone tells you, like, the way that things happen in Sacramento, people believe that I'm like Red Auerbach. He's like, and I'm just an everyday average Joe. I'm not some miracle worker. We never made it to the playoffs. We never won games. He's like, but the way that people remember me there is like totally different than what is factual. Great. That's awesome for a guy like Michael Malone who, appreciates the love. But at the same time, that's where we're kind of heading with Tyrese. Like, man, you average 12 points a game and you're a really good up and coming player. Your team got your coach fired 17 games into the season. You lost by 46 points like 5 times. Like, this was a bad team. With him on it, without him on it, it doesn't matter. It's still a bad team. And, like, he can keep saying that he would have been here forever, but that's a story that we've heard so many times before. And it's a story even that De'Aaron Fox has told. And, has he said it any time lately? No, but he still says he would like to be the guy who snaps the streak. This franchise has a way of wearing you down to a nub, and there very well could have come a time where he ended up somewhere else, whether it was 5 years from now, 8 years from now, 3 years from now. So I appreciate Tyrese Haliburton and his hurt feelings, but at the same time, I'm just kind of surprised that it just keeps going on.
I understand Tyrese and how it feels. I understand. I would like to think that I'd handle it differently, but I don't know. I've never been traded before. I've never been in the NBA, so I don't know. But I would also say, like, there's a level of like detached from reality from all this with Tyrese Haliburton, in my opinion. I asked Damian a question earlier. I'll ask you the same thing. What would he want the Sacramento Kings to do? Just keep him around and keep stinking? Because like I said, the reality of the situation is they were terrible for 2 years or a year and a half with Tyrese Haliburton. Was it all his fault? No, absolutely not. But something had to be done. They were horrible. Tyrese played. If you want to, look at this as like an audition or something like that, once again, not his fault. But he had the little sly line in there where, I get to play my real position or whatever the case may be. They got destroyed numerous times when the keys were handed completely to Tyrese Haliburton. Wasn't that an 8-game losing streak with him where they lost by 60, they lost by 40, they lost by another 30 a couple of times? And if I'm sitting there, like, gotta be real with yourself. What would you want the Kings to do in that situation? Just keep you around because you're a good guy, or do they need to do what they have to do, or they feel they have to do to try and get a winning franchise in here?
Yeah, I mean, he was part of some really, really, really bad teams. And could he be part of a complete turnaround? Sure. We'll have to wait and see what he does in Indiana, because he kind of is in the same situation he was here, where you're on a team that really doesn't have a bright today future. Maybe 3 years from now, sure. But are you going to be a difference maker? Are you going to, again, we talk about what's the difference between a superstar and just a really good player or a great player. But like Tyrese Haliburton is like, he's risen to superstar status, again, averaging like 14 points a game. Like he's risen that way because he's really good at talking on old man and the three, so like, I think we're giving him a really long leash on this. In normal situations, you would be like, hey man, like it's like we're literally caught in the movie Swingers, right? Where Jon Favreau's character is sitting there a year in, telling everybody about his girlfriend that broke up with him a year ago and was dating someone else. Like, hey man, like, it happened a long time ago. Like, why are we still talking about this? And I just think it is very strange. It's interesting that that a young guy, I get it, his feelings were hurt, but that can't be how you're defined in the league as a guy who got traded by the Kings. Like, there's a lot of guys who've been traded by the Kings. You're on a long list, man. So, yeah, it's just a very, very interesting way that he's perceiving this and that he's pushing the narrative forward.
However Tyrese chooses to deal with this is not really of significance to me. It gives us stuff to talk about. It's always interesting to see interviews with him and the different things that he says about Sacramento and resentment and getting over it, and motivation and all of that stuff. That's fine. The thing that continues to amaze me about this deal is I think, Yahoo in their write-up about Alex Kennedy's interview with Tyrese framed it as the trade that shocked the NBA world. And that's where that's the whole part of this Tyrese thing that completely loses me. It's the old man in the three stuff. It's the Jalen and Jacoby stuff. It's all of that. Wow, they traded Tyrese Haliburton for a pick swap and cash considerations. Like, do we need to look at Domantas Sabonis's numbers from last year? And why isn't it clear? Hell, Tyree low-key said this in his interview. I finally get to play my natural position in the NBA. Yeah, good for you. You know what that also means for Sacramento is their backcourt isn't crowded anymore, and their second best player, or some would argue their first best player, is spread out from the front court. So now their two best players, one's in the front court, one's in the back court. That's going to create a significantly better team, but no one wants to acknowledge that. They're hung up on this young hotness that is Tyrese Haliburton, who was only hot after he was traded. No one gave a crap about him when he was wearing a Sacramento Kings uniform. That's the part about all of this that every time I read an interview and I read the framing of this conversation, it's always baffling to me. Every single time it confuses me.
Yeah, what if I told you I could trade Buddy Hield and the number 12 pick in the draft for a two-time 25-year-old all-star center?
See, it's different, right? People will feel differently about it because you're trading a number and not a name.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different, and I just find it really interesting that this is
trying to move that number 12 pick leading into the draft. It's different now that it has a name.
Yeah, and I mean, Haliburton outplayed his spot in the draft without any question, and he's going to be an excellent NBA player. I can't tell you that he's going to be a better NBA player than Sabonis is now, or that Sabonis is in 5 years. I don't know if there will ever come a point where he's a better player than Sabonis. Now, he could be, but I can't guarantee you that. And it's because Sabonis is really, really good player. So, yeah, to me, again, it's a very strange situation, and I hope that it works out and that he has a incredibly strong career and everything else. And he's a great interview and a great guy to talk to. But it's almost like he forgot all of those post-game interviews where he had his hood pulled all the way over his face, and he was so downtrodden and so disappointed with what just happened on the court that he could hardly even speak. And all he kept saying was, I don't know, we just got to be better. It's like he forgot, like, his vision of what Sacramento was, like, is somehow skewed. And so I'm hoping that he is every bit as good as everyone thinks he can be. But I'm, like he should, I moved on quite a while ago, because that's what you have to do when you cover a team or when you're part of the league. You got to move on and you play the game wherever you're at and cover the team, whoever's on it.
Yeah, I think he's going to be just fine in the NBA. I think he's going to be a really good ball player. Eventually, maybe he gets Indiana, on a different level than they are right now. I don't think they'll be very good this year, but that's not his fault. That's just the way the team is constructed. I do feel like, and somebody talked about earlier, that we should boo Tyrese when he gets back. And absolutely not. Tyrese didn't deserve anything to get booed. But he keeps, as I would say, he's trying to play both sides of the fence, where he's like, I don't have a problem with the Kings fans. It's the organization that I love Kings fans. Well, if you repeatedly talk about how you want the Kings to be terrible, That's not good for the fans that you love so much, right? So I would say, if I were him, just say, hey, Sac is doing their thing. I'm doing mine. Wish them the best. I'm worried about Indiana right now. The other thing about this is it feels like, and you touched on it a little bit, he's got a lot of animosity towards the Kings and all this other stuff. I feel like they treated him good when he was here. I felt that they treated him well. They promoted him. You know, they had him on billboards. They treated him well. It became a situation where they were terrible, and they had to make a move to change the whole thing up. People were talking about, well, why not De'Aaron Fox? Hear me when I say nobody was safe. Like, nobody. Everybody played a hand in it. It just so happened Tyrese's deal is the one that went through, but nobody is safe of it, and nobody is safe today. We talk about this all the time about how such and such needs this is show and prove or they're going to be gone. Like, nothing's changed. Nobody's safe because nobody's winning.
Yeah. You know, again, forget the bad times. That's what it feels like. It feels like he really does. And again, you're throwing a franchise under the bus, and I get it. Maybe there's some reason. Maybe there was something said behind the scenes that made you feel like more sensitive about it than you should have. But, you know, again, at the end of the day, you have to know it's a business. And this happens all the time. You know, there is not a contract in the NBA that can't be traded. And you got to live in that world where everyone is potentially getting traded tomorrow. Except for LeBron. He never gets traded. He goes and does whatever he wants, but everyone else does. Like Steph, he ain't going nowhere. But, you know, you talked about Draymond earlier. Like, they don't want to, what if they don't want to pay Draymond next year? Like, you're going to sit there and talk about how they done you wrong? Like, how can you? They gave you an opportunity to play major minutes as a second round pick. You know, you won 5 championships, 4 championships, whatever it is. You know, like it's a business.
No media.
No media.
New media. Yeah, new media.
And hopefully this doesn't happen, but if this all goes wrong, given that it was pitted as like Fox versus Haliburton in this scenario, does De'Aaron become the bad guy?
No, because I don't think De'Aaron Fox ever puts himself in a situation to be the bad guy. I mean, like, we've heard enough of, oh, well, they didn't want De'Aaron, so they wanted Haliburton. They didn't want De'Aaron, so that wasn't the deal that was on the table. They would have traded him instead. I don't know if that's the truth. Like, we've never really had anyone inside cement to us that they would have kept, you know, Haliburton over Fox. Like, we know how good De'Aaron Fox has been. There's no proof at all that Tyrese Haliburton will be a better NBA player at all than De'Aaron Fox. So, like, I'm not sure. Like, you got a guy locked up, and, like, if you're really looking at it that way, De'Aaron Fox said it a long time before you did, Tyrese Haliburton. He said how much he wanted to be here a long time before you did, and he kept saying it. So, like, who should we, like, be more concerned with hurting their feelings? The guy who said it for 5 years, the guy who said it for, you know, 18 months. Like, either way, you know, someone's going to get their feelings hurt. The Kings needed a shakeup. They had too many point guards. Tyrese Haliburton was drafted as a shooting guard and was not a shooting guard. He was clearly a point guard. Right when you got your hands on him, you saw it. But that's not what he was drafted as. And you drafted him as a backcourt mate. And, you know, in the small sample size, it wasn't working. You could have given it more time, but you didn't. And instead, you got yourself a really good player.
No, that's the other thing that I had an issue with was the whole no, I was the only one that wanted to be here. That's not true. Like,
no,
plenty of people wanted. Not like that was their first choice, but when they were here, yeah, I'm here. Let's make it happen. Let's win. Like, that's the one. I was like, yeah, just calm down with that one. We weren't the only guy.
DeMarcus Cousins wanted to be here. He did. He wanted to be here. You know, Jason Thompson wanted to be here, Sacramento.
No, one of those things is not like the other. with all due respect.
Well, of course.
It's just a little bit different.
Hit him with the well.
James. Okay, you ready to reveal your next happy hour guest? Because if there's any truth to what I saw on Twitter today, y'all need to go to thekingsbeat.com right now and become a premium subscriber. I'll become a premium subscriber again to not miss this. We can't get them on the radio show, but if we could get them on off the record, ooh, boy, Pete Youngman.
Thursday, Off the Record with the Kings Beat, Virtual Happy Hour Part 8. Let's get physical with Pete Youngman.
Wait, that's Thursday?
This Thursday.
Oh, let's go.
Thursday night. Dog Days of Summer. We got to hit this thing hard. Off the Record with the Kings Beat, Virtual Happy Hour Part 8. Let's get physical.
Definitely.
Let's go. Become a premium subscriber.
Yeah. Kingsbeat.com. You got to go. Pete Youngman, let's get physical. That's solid. I appreciate that.